Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. We have an amazing show for everybody today. What do we have, Krystal?
Indeed we do, and happy Valentine's Day as well to all of our rising loves. And happy birthday to my baby girl, Ida Rose, who is turning 3 today. We got to get all the important stuff out of the way here
Happy
this
birthday,
morning.
Ida.
Love you, baby girl. Okay, so the show. Very good show. We've got Ryan Grimm to talk about the little controversy he stirred up about Medicare for All. We've got editor-in-chief of The Hill, Bob Cusack, to talk 2020. We've got Aaron Mate to talk about Bloomberg and his record on Iraq and war-making in general. So lots of good stuff to get to. But we also want to take a look at the non-endorsement that happened yesterday, which was significant.
Yeah, there was a so basically what happened is the Culinary Union in Nevada, which has kind of been blowing up their members, the Culinary Union basically announced that they're not going to be endorsing anybody right now. Let's take a listen.
Is we're going to endorse our goals, what we're doing. That's what we're going to endorse. We're not going to endorse a candidate, a political candidate. We respect every single political candidate right now.
So as you can see there, Krystal, they decided not to endorse anybody after there was kind of intense pressure because two things happened. The leadership started distributing all of this anti-Medicare for all leaflets to their members, but then at the same time, I think hundreds of their members signed an open petition against their leadership that began circulating amongst journalists online. The Culinary Union basically really stepped into it because they went so hard against Bernie Sanders when so many of their union members apparently, what they should have done is done this from the first place. Make up your mind, right? Anybody in the union can vote however they want. This is the position of leadership. Even then, I don't think that was necessary because it's such a shot across the bow at Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren.
It was a little too heavy-handed was the problem. And I mean, just to put this in context, this union is incredibly important in Las Vegas. I mean, in Nevada in general, very well organized, very large, very significant in terms of especially a Democratic primary. They have swung the results on multiple Democratic primaries. Also very closely tied to Harry Reid. It's always important to note. They backed Barack Obama, actually, over Hillary Clinton back in 2008. There was a little bit of a backlash there, and their members actually went with Hillary Clinton. So they bucked the leadership. That has made them reluctant to wade into these primaries. And so what they did is the very night that Bernie Sanders was winning New Hampshire, they put out this first flyer attacking him specifically on Medicare for All with much softer language about Elizabeth Warren and Medicare for All, even though she supposedly supports the same policy. Then, when there was a pushback, then they came out with a statement saying they were being viciously attacked, which no one is okay with, but we also haven't actually seen evidence of those vicious attacks, we should say, creating even more sort of pressure around all of this. But I think the thing that really swayed the outcome here ultimately is, number one, they were probably inclined to go with Joe Biden. Joe Biden is barely even competing in the state at this point. He's just completely collapsed, so that doesn't seem like a great bet. Who are you going to pick other than Bernie Sanders? I mean, he's like the most pro-labor candidate you could possibly have. And I think, like you pointed out, probably the most significant factor, and this is all just guesswork, my guess of what was going on here internally, is that their own members said, wait a second, we back Bernie Sanders, we back Medicare for All, and we don't want to see this going in the other direction.
This is what happened with the Working Families Party, too. There's actually a very strange phenomenon going on right now, very heavy-handed tactics by these Democratic establishment groups. You also saw, I'm not sure if you saw this, Emily's List, their super PAC. Apparently, they had one of their staffers leaked the script for a possible ad that were going to call out Bernie Sanders, and there's another one.
They were going to compare him to Donald Trump.
Right, yeah, and it was like the Women's Vote PAC or something like that, where the script came out where they were going to basically put Bernie and Trump side by side and portray them as anti-women, which is, I mean, look, like I'm on the right, and I'm like, that's the most insane thing I've ever heard in my entire life. I don't really get it. I mean, even with Trump,
you do get it, because the thing is, they don't understand why people like Bernie Sanders. They're so caught up in the bubble here that they think people across the country.
But how do you conjure up an anti-women message? Look, even with Trump, I get it. I don't agree with it, but like I could see it.
Yeah, there's some material to work with.
Yeah. But like with Bernie, I'm like, what are you pulling from? I mean, it's really bizarre.
Yeah, and just so you know, I mean, Emily's List came out with a very carefully worded statement confirming that this was coming from them, that this was something that they were working on. So there's no doubt that there's a movement, there's a realization like, oh my gosh, this guy actually has a shot. I think that's going to set in even more if he does win the Nevada caucus, which I think he's well poised to do. You don't want to take anything for granted. But his closest rival in the state was Joe Biden, who has completely collapsed and, like I said, isn't even in the state. I mean, went straight from New Hampshire to South Carolina.
I think what this is all about is grift, is that at the end of the day, these union establishment, Emily's List, all these other people are so embedded in the Democratic establishment and have been able to use their chits like the Culinary Union be like, oh, well, don't you mess with us because we can screw the election. Or Emily's List be like, oh, we'll call you anti-women and a sexist if you don't do exactly what we're going to do. I'm not saying, look, Emily's List does great work, but that doesn't mean they have immense power whenever it comes to the Democratic establishment. And the fact that they would weaponize that against Bernie, that is BS.
It's questionable, the great work that Emily's List does, by the way.
Well,
they're basically the DNC for women. It's essentially what Emily's List has become. I do want to say, though, Culinary Union does incredible work. They train a lot of amazing organizers. What they've done for their own members is incredible, and I don't want to lose sight of that. But I do think that the heavy-handed tactics that they used here ultimately backfired, and the fact that, look, they were never going to endorse Bernie Sanders. There were like some dumb people out there, dumb reporters who were like, oh, the Bernie bros have cost Bernie Sanders this endorsement. They were never going to endorse Bernie Sanders, so don't believe that for 1 second. The fact that they didn't endorse anyone was the best that the Bernie movement could hope for.
I mean, all of this really just comes down to relevancy and embedded in the Democratic establishment. I'm thinking, of the Human Rights Campaign denouncing Bernie for his Joe Rogan endorsement, now Emily's List, now the Culinary Union. I mean, all of these other people, it's all part of a united grift in order to get money and then use their power in order to call somebody sexist, racist, homophobic, whatever, and cast. But Bernie, any class movement is a direct threat to that ability to run the table with their purchase of identity politics through their sheer amount of money that they have in their organization. And what they're finding out right now, all that money ain't worth anything when the actual people revolt.
They know they won't be able to control them.
Yeah.
And that's it. There was one other thing we wanted to mention here. There's some new reporting out from, I think, Hunter Walker over at Yahoo about how intimately involved the DNC was, in spite of their characterizations to the contrary, in that doomsday election shadow app. They've tried to obviously, I mean, look, the Iowa Democratic Party shares plenty of the blame. Listen, we're not letting them off the hook. But they've tried to just completely throw them under the bus and escape any accountability for themselves. And Tom Perez still needs to resign.
Right. Hunter actually has a bunch of documents which show how intimately linked Shadow App and the DNC really were. Encourage you all to go and read it.
Absolutely. All right. We're going to tell you what's on our radars. That's next.